I'm back. That little voice inside your head. While you're out getting gifts, don't forget you or your office. Because now at Office Depot Office Max, you can save 20% on regular priced office supplies, furniture, and more. Get your 20% coupon at officedepot.com/radio or mention this ad in store. A gift for them, a gift for you.
Taking care of business.
Offer ends 12/9. Excludes tech, coffee, appliances, ink, and toner. See coupon for details.
Welcome to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, the voice of the fringe majority. Here is your UFO Headline News. There was a sighting in Deva, Honduras. This is a very complicated name. This occurred on October 7th of 2017. The witness states, "I was coming home from work, picked up my son from his nanny, and we headed home. Close to home, we both noticed some lights in the clouds. At first I thought they were reflections from the ground. When we first noticed them, there were 4 bright lights in the clouds, circling each other in one spot. While we walked further towards our home, the circling lights seemed to follow the path of the street we were walking on. As we stopped in front of the block of apartments where we live, we seemed to stop too. Some of the neighbors were there and they saw them as well. They were like gigantic fireflies playing with each other through the clouds. Occasionally, you see the lights were coming from above the clouds and not from the ground. I took my phone and did my best to film them. I had to use my phone cover to block the street light from interfering with the camera on my phone. After I filmed, I took some photos too, and after that, we went upstairs. I don't know for how long the lights remained in the sky, but they were there for at least 15 minutes. I don't know if it matters, but the following day, I had a dream about a partially destroyed planet on which the remaining people were searching for a way to prevent a cataclysm." Wow. Quite common with people that have seen UFOs, I might add, and aliens, so maybe they paid him a visit. We can only guess. All right, next one. UFO sighting in South Chicago Heights, Illinois. October 28th of 2017. That's near where I'm at, here in Chicago. The report states, "I was driving on I-394 heading north from Dyer, Indiana, heading back to Chicago, when out of the corner of my eye, I noticed some lights in the sky to my right, which is east. Traffic was light, so I slowed down a bit to get a better look. I noticed the other cars also hit their brakes to slow down. I saw 4 to 5 large, hazy white lights chasing each other in a perfect circle." Oh, sounds like the last one. "Going through whatever clouds were there, and then meeting up in the middle of the circle, and then going back into the circle formation. Looked like they were playing Ring Around the Rosie, but at a super fast pace." Wow, what are the odds these are back to back, these stories? "I looked at the time, and it was 7:55 p.m. I kept sight of it until I got onto I-294 and then couldn't look up because traffic was pretty busy on I-294. I got off on my exit to head home. I was at a light on 107th and Pulaski in Chicago, heading north, and looked up and a bit to my left, which is west, and there they were, the lights chasing each other in a perfect circle, in and out of the clouds and meeting in the middle, bouncing back out to the circle once again. I believe it was about 8:20 p.m. during both sightings. I did not see any beams of light beneath it, going to the ground as one might see with a spotlight or advertising lights. No storms or lightning in the area either. I know other people saw this as well, as I saw people looking up from their cars in that direction. Perhaps they may report it as well. It was the first time I personally witnessed this phenomena. I saw this at least 2 other times. Once with my son. Sure would like to know if anyone else has witnessed this. Wow, that's interesting. This person has seen this same kind of phenomena. I have personally seen a lot of UFOs, but I have not seen dancing balls of light like that outside. All right, next one. UFO sighting in Giroux, Louisiana. This occurred on December 24th of 2014. This person states, "My husband and I were driving home, and I was amazed at a very unusual sunset. I asked my husband to pull over in a vacant field so I could snap a few images of the clouds over Alma Plantation, a local sugar mill. The mill was in full production at the time. The next day, I opened the images and noticed a white speck and thought the image was marred. When I expanded the image to find out exactly what that white speck looked like, I was a little stunned to see this, quote, object I was leering at of this photo. This to anyone except for my husband in fear thought I was a nut. This was almost 3 years ago, and I now just want to know what others believe it to be. Any comments will be appreciated." Wow, very cool. All right, we've got a blast from the past of a UFO sighting. I lived in Portland, Oregon. It was March 17th, 1981, at about 4:30 in the morning. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I could hear my dog in the basement barking constantly. There was this sound like I was in a wind tunnel, and a very high-pitched sound that was piercing my ears. Suddenly, I felt my feet go numb, like they were no longer there. I quickly knew this was no dream. Someone or something was trying to take my insides of my body. I could feel my body disappearing as it went upward towards my head. It never at any time hurt until it got to the level where my heart was. At that moment, I could hear myself screaming, "You're killing me!" My heart hurt so bad, it was like it was going to explode. All at once, it stopped, and I could feel my body coming back. As it had gone up my body, it was dropping downward and making me feel my body again. Then all at once, it stopped, and no more wind or high-pitched noise. The dog stopped barking. The high-pitched sound must have hurt her ears. I was so scared, I jumped out of bed and started to find my children. Our house was 2 stories, and the kids all slept upstairs. My twin boys were in their beds. My daughter was missing from her bed. My first thoughts were, they had taken her. Screaming, I ran downstairs and found her on the sofa. My boys had woken up from my screaming. I must have been a crazy person. I was screaming at them to get in the car. Really, I thought they would return at any minute, and we needed to leave that house. Like I said, I was not thinking clearly. I did not call the police. I thought they wouldn't believe me. My husband was at work. He worked the graveyard shift. So I called my sister-in-law in California and told her that if we disappeared, the aliens had taken us. I was beyond scared. She said simply that she would tell everyone. I took my children and put them in the car. We were all still in our pajamas. I drove to the hills where there were lots of trees, thinking we could hide. Then, as a crazed and scared person, I kept driving. My children said, "Mom, what's those lights in the sky?" A craft that looked like a triangle without the bottom line had lights up and down both sides, and wherever we went, it went with us. My children were now starting to get scared. I explained to them as best as I could that if they took us, We would be together, and I would protect them. Yeah, sure I would. What do you say to three scared kids? I knew they weren't going to leave us, and I drove back home. We went back into the house and waited, hugged together, on the sofa. Soon my husband walked through the door, and the kids ran screaming and crying to their dad. He had no idea what was happening. I explained as best as I could. I'm sure my husband thought I had finally lost it. He turned on the television, and there it all was. They told about two large orange balls that officers on both sides of the river had seen. Washington lies on one side of the river, and Oregon lies on the other side. They both heard the wind and high-pitched noise, and the balls split in half and went down into the river. They came back up, and the two halves went back together and were gone. They had to believe the two officers. I knew then that I was not crazy. The kids told their dad about the spaceship that had followed us everywhere. The television station asked if anyone had any contact or saw these things to contact them. I called and said so many had called they were going to do a show on it. When I went for the show, there were a lot of people there. The Air Force had men there. The man from the Air Force interviewed us all. I told him what happened. He said we could not tell it to the public because we would panic the nation. I told him I didn't care because people needed to know. Then he showed me a book that said Project Blue Book on it. Inside were pictures of aliens and spacecrafts. The real thing. Well, as you might guess, that show never aired. They threatened everyone in their own way. After that, you never heard anything again about what happened. For many years, after when a big windstorm happened, I was terrified. Whenever I heard a siren of anything, any kind, I would get scared. It took a long time to get over it. I have seen a lot over the years, but I just keep it to myself. What good does it do to tell anyone anything, anyway? That was a lot of years ago, and now people see a lot and tell about it. We all know they are out there, and here, and just waiting till they can peacefully come and meet with us. It won't be that much longer. Wow, I have not heard of such a story. That was amazing. And to have the Air Force show up and threaten them? And this took place March 17th of 1981 out in Portland, Oregon. That is amazing. I would love to hear more about this woman's story. I cannot believe that. Again, you can find the links to this on UFO Headline News, and this comes to us from UFO Stalker. Coming to us from Earth Sky News, a powerful star explosion known as supernova usually mark the death of stars. But astronomers today, November 8th, 2017, announced a supernova that exploded multiple times over a period of more than 50 years. It might be the explosion of a star more massive than any seen to explode before. It might be an explosion caused by the meeting of matter and antimatter in a massive star's core. Whatever the true explanation, the astronomers said the finding, which is published in the peer-reviewed journal Nature, completely confounds existing knowledge of a star's end of life. The Palomar Transient Factory, an astronomical survey led by Caltech, designed to find transient and variable sources such as variable stars, supernova, asteroids, and comets, noticed the supernova in September of 2014. The supernova was designated IPTF 14HLS. Analysis of its light indicated it was what's called a Type 2P supernova. As expected, the supernova began to fade again. Everything about the discovery seemed normal until a few months later. That's when astronomers with the Las Cumbres Observatory, a worldwide network of robotic telescopes directed out of Goleta, California, noticed that IPTF 14HLS was growing brighter again. Their statement explained, a normal supernova rises to peak brightness and fades over approximately 100 days. Supernova IPTF 14HLS, on the other hand,
I'm a one-trick pony. Literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
grew brighter and dimmer, at least 5 times over 2 years. Then astronomers went back and looked at archival data showing this part of the sky. They were astonished to find evidence of an explosion in 1954 at the exact same location on the sky's dome. Apparently, IPTF 14HLS had somehow survived an earlier explosion and exploded again in 2014. Astronomers are now saying that IPTF 14HLS might be an explosion of a star more massive than any seen to explode before. The study, led by astronomer Arcavi of Las Cumbres Observatory and the University of California, Santa Barbara, calculated that the star that exploded was at least 50 times more massive than our Sun, and probably much larger. The size of this explosion could be the reason that our conventional understanding of the death of stars explained this event, or failed to explain this event. According to these astronomers, Arcavi commented, this supernova breaks everything we thought we knew about supernova work. The Las Cumbres astronomers' statement also explained a possible bizarre mechanism for the explosion of supernova IPTF-H 14HLS. Supernova IPTF-14HLS may be the first example of a pulsational pair instability supernova. This theory holds that massive stars become so hot in their cores that energy is converted into matter and antimatter. This would cause an explosion that blows off the outer layers of the star and leaves the core intact. This process can repeat over decades before the large final explosion and collapse to a black hole. Andy Howell, leader of the LCO supernova group and a co-author of the study, said, these explosions were only expected to be seen in the early universe and should be extinct today. This is like finding a dinosaur still alive today. If you found one, you would question whether it was truly a dinosaur. But the astronomers warn, this theory can't explain all the observations and might not, after all, be the answer to the riddle of this star. Instead, they say this supernova might be something completely new. That's why the supernova group at Las Cumbres Observatory is still monitoring IPTF 14HLS, which remains bright 3 years after it was discovered. Bottom line, supernova IPTF 14HLS, discovered in 2014, stayed bright for 600 days. Then astronomers found a 1954 explosion in the same spot in the sky. Wow. Then finally, a look into the paranormal. These stories come to us from thoughtco.com. You once again can find these all on Inception Radio Network under UFO Headline News. Poltergeist haunts this old Fargo home. After moving in to the old house, Kay experienced some very disturbing poltergeist activity. She states, I bought an older home in Fargo, North Dakota in the spring of 2002. At first, I didn't pay any attention to the noises and lights flickering because of its age. In the first few weeks, I would see someone run by my window in the backyard. I would run out and try to catch them, but never saw anyone, and wondered how they could run down the side of the house that fast. All I could see of him was a black shape of a man from the waist up going by. It took some time before I realized that the guy would have to have been 10 feet tall to be seen at the window. I'm 5 feet 6 inches tall, and the bottom of the window is a few inches above me. I still didn't think anything of the noises and flickering lights. I was sitting on the couch, and an orb came in from outside the wall in my staircase and into the other wall. The only other time I saw them was during the day. And two orbs, one behind the other, egg-shaped and a solid white, went 4 feet off the ground across my living room and disappeared. Again, I was sitting on my couch with my cat, and we both watched them go by. My cat couldn't have cared less, and they didn't frighten me either. I'm not looking for odd things to happen, so didn't notice unless it was in my face. I had moved in a dresser and left it at the bottom of the stairs because I didn't feel like hauling it up to the second floor yet. That evening, I heard a loud noise in that area and just thought it was something falling down the stairs. I put stuff on my stairs and would take it all up at once instead of a bunch of trips. When I went there the next day, a drawer was open, and not just a little. It was pulled almost all the way out. Then I became frightened. During the winter, I put plastic on the windows to keep the cold out. The tape that's used takes the paint off when removed if you're not careful. Right in front of me, the plastic was ripped halfway off a full-size window. For about 15 years, I've had problems with pictures I had taken with white streaks and light spots in them. I thought it was where I was getting them developed, so I took them to 4 different places, hoping to correct the problem. I've had 3 different cameras over this time, and so I knew it wasn't that. I had thrown some away, thinking they were just developed wrong, and now I wished I hadn't. I never thought they were anything paranormal. I've stopped taking pictures now. Over time, almost everything has stopped, but for a few noises and lights flickering that I've hardly noticed. Now it's January 2016 and have had some loud noises. My lights are flickering again and too many bulbs are going out, but it is an old house. What I can't explain is all my electronics are not working properly. My coffee pot I love started leaking, and my gas stove I use to heat my house stopped working all in the same week. Ooh, that is such a haunted place. That is so typical to hear. I don't know what they're thinking. Oh, gosh. All right, next one. The Haunting of Elora. Dum, dum, dum. All right. Traumatic events can sometimes trigger poltergeist activity, but for one young girl, the torment seemed to have no end. It is currently theorized that poltergeist activity arises out of the subconscious of a living person called an agent. This agent, very often a young girl, usually is known to be under some kind of stress, whether it is emotional, physical, or psychological, by some mechanism that is still unknown to science and paranormal researchers. This inner stress can manifest as phenomena outside the agent. Turmoil inside the body and mind of the agent becomes a physical reality in the form of knocks on the walls, lights and other electric flicking on and off by themselves, objects thrown about, and more. In the case of Laura B., might very well qualify as a poltergeist agent. As a young girl, she suffered the anguish of an alcoholic father who often lashed out in violent anger. It's not surprising, then, that Laura was terrified of her home's basement at night, since that is where her parents' bedroom was. The creepy feeling in my basement intensified as his alcoholism and addictions grew worse, Laura says, and I would refuse to go into my parents' room for any reason. There was always a negative feeling in the room, but I always attributed that to my dad. Evil in itself is not paranormal, and we can easily understand why Laura would get negative feelings from that room. About 5 years ago, however, her parents divorced, and that's when the line began to be crossed into the unexplained, when the poltergeist activity began. Quote, all of the negative feelings that had been in my parents' room suddenly moved into my room and intensified, Laura says. Now, on one level, this could be understood as a psychological reaction. Many children feel responsible or guilty for their parents' divorces, and Laura might have been transferring the negative feelings she once had about her parents' room, her father, and brought them into her own room, her unjustified guilt. But now that she was directing this fear and trauma inward, it began to manifest in outward phenomena. Quote, I had taken the TV from downstairs into my room, but always had to sleep with it on or with me facing the other direction, Laura says in explaining how the phenomena began. If I looked around my room at night, I would always see a tiny red orb zip across my room. I would watch it zoom from one side of the room to the other, almost like the red dot from a laser pointer. Shortly after I would see this red light, if I looked at my TV, there would be a small green square flashing at the center of the screen. This square would get larger with each flash and look like it was an image, but I was way too scared to look at it. The flashing TV sent me extremely bad vibes, and I would always turn on the lights or the TV afterward, so I wouldn't be in the dark. Terrible, silent dark. If this happened just once, we might dismiss this experience as hallucination, but the phenomena repeated night after night for Laura. Quote, each night I would see the screen flash once and be terrified to even consider looking at it. I realized that the red light was a sign that the TV would flash, so I'd always turn on the TV or slam my eyes shut when I saw it. I got so scared of the red light and green flash that I stopped sleeping in my room altogether. Fast forward to a year after Laura's parents' divorce. It was the end of the school year, and Laura decided to have a sleepover party with a few close friends to celebrate. Laura planned for them to sleep in the living room, making the excuse that her bedroom was too small. Quote, I had other reasons for saying that, she says. One girl was intent on sneaking into Laura's room. However, when she did so, Laura had a disturbing vision. Quote, what I saw made me go cold, she recalls. Black smog like gunk was oozing out from the crack under my door into the hallway. It was one of the most disgusting looking things I have ever seen. Laura was at her wits' end. She asked another trusted friend who happened to have an interest in the paranormal to investigate her room. She went and came out a little while later looking white-faced. Whatever is in your room is the most evil thing I have ever encountered, she told Laura. It is not human. To be objective, we don't know whether or not Laura's friend is a suitable judge of such matters, but she did perhaps feel the same negativity that Laura was dealing with. Laura believes this was a turning point. Quote, after she investigated my room, it was as if all hell had been unleashed, Laura says. I believe that acknowledging the entity for what it was gave it power. The negative feeling in my room spread to the entire house and made being there feel oppressive. I no longer felt safe in my house. It all seemed to come to a head one summer night when Laura and this friend were in the house alone. Even though it was summer, my entire house was cold, she says. A heavy, malevolent feeling seemed to creep ever closer to us. We were cold, so we decided to make some soup. As we were in my kitchen, we heard a scratching noise come from the inside of the microwave. We opened it up to see where it could be coming from, and the noise stopped. We couldn't find the source, so we just shut the door. And the scratching started up again. Laura's dog began to act strangely. He would stand, look nervously at the TV, whine with discomfort, and then sit down with his ears pinned back submissively. The two girls decided to put on a movie to calm their escalating fears. I was sitting on my couch with my feet tucked under me when I felt something cold, thick, and pointed brush from my heel to my arch of my foot. It was very deliberate, and the worst sensation I have ever felt. I screamed and jumped up, and my friend and I ran outside to go into my trampoline and just held each other in the semi-darkness. I looked toward my room, and I could see a shape in my window, even though no one else was home. My dog started to freak out again, and there was a rustling noise in the grass. I saw what looked like a black cloak being dragged across the grass. The shape circled the trampoline several times.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer, Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
And then disappeared. The disturbing activity continued for Laura until she got some advice from an online friend. He said he had 2 guardian spirits that he would send to me to take care of the creature. 1 light and 1 dark, Laura says. I was desperate for any help, so I agreed. Most of us probably would not have taken that solution very seriously. She states, that night I stayed up all night watching 3 orbs of light fly frantically around my house, she says. One was an inky black color that seemed to ooze and drip. The others were a large black ball and a smaller white ball. The white and black ball were chasing and bumping into the inky blot as I watched wide-eyed. The black and white spirits forced it out of my house, and for a while I thought everything would be all right. Things would not be all right, however. Laura continued to be haunted by menacing shadows and experienced one particularly frightening illusion. A couple of houses down the street, there is a family that has a large Rottweiler, she says. One night I was walking home when I looked at that dog. It was staring at me with inky black eyes. It also looked like its jaw had been ripped off and its tongue was just hanging out of its mouth. I ran to my house, and in front of my driveway was a cat with the same ripped out jaw, but its eyes were normal. It was strange and disturbing, but luckily I only saw that phenomena once. Today the phenomena has subsided, but Laura admits that her faith has been shaken by this ordeal. I'm not sure what I believe anymore, she says, but all I know for sure is that there is true evil in this world. Shadow people are everywhere, I'm telling you. That's why I cover it. I want to thank you all for joining me, Heidi Hollis, here on UFO Headline News. Remember to go to InceptionRadioNetwork.com to read and see all the links to the news stories shared here today. Be powerful, be informed, and have a wonderful rest of your day.